back here with Rabbi Gabriel, and I'm Jason Roeder. And I have my next question. I've saved the best for last.
Okay.
Or it might not be my last question, but I'm definitely this topic. Why is Gaza, the Gaza Strip, why is it so a heavily contested area? Why is this area so important to all sides of this conflict?
Yeah, well, you can see on the map here where it is the Gaza Strip. It makes a border with, of course, it has a border with Israel, but it has a border with Egypt too. So, if you're familiar with the Bible, this was the area of Ashkelon. Ashkelon, that's where Samson was. The Philistines were there, and Samson's challenging the Philistines. It was in that area. You can visit some stuff there. I went to school actually, uh, not far.
Really?
Ashkelon it's a district, which is actually Ashkelon is a sister city of Portland.
What?
Yes, it's a sister city of Portland, and I went to school in that district. I was in a kibbutz. That's where I learned my Hebrew when I was a teenager.
Okay.
I was an Israeli cowboy. I used to work the cows.
Wow, that's fun.
But it was in a program that young immigrants from Europe could come, and their tuition was paid.
Oh, nice.
Or part of it was paid by working the farm. They would live in the kibbutz, and we would learn, have school, and half day we would work the farm. And I was a cowboy. And I did that, and then it was in 1973. I entered school in early September, and 6th of October of that year, the Yom Kippur War started.
Oh.
Exactly 50 years to the day of the Gregorian year, and to what happened on October 7th this year. And it happened, it's eerie. The way the Yom Kippur War started is the same way this one started.
Really? Do you think somebody planned it to be that way?
I don't know. 50 years.
Exactly 50 doesn't sound like
50 years is a time of jubilee section.
Oh, wow.
So, and what happened, it was a high holy day of Yom Kippur. And everybody was in synagogues praying. They usually keep a minimum contingent at the borders. And 3 nations attacked, and Israel was caught by surprise.
Wow.
So it was very difficult. The same thing happened this time during a high holy day. It was the last day of the Feast of Tabernacle, a very high holy day in the Jewish calendar. They get an attack and taken by surprise. It's almost like eerie. So
it is.
So so this area has been tossed around with many people. Like we'll start from 1948, because before that it was the British, and before that whoever else was in charge of that region of Syria, Palestina, which, if I remind you, was not a country. But in 1948, the year when Israel declared independence, Gaza was under the jurisdiction of the Arab League. People from the 20th century will know what is the Arab League.
It's not a soccer or a football league?
No, it's not a football league. It's a league of Arab nations. So, and in 1959, it was under the United Arab Republic. Again, it was something, it was still part of the Arab world. In 1964, it was under the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization. Now, I got to do a little explanation about the PLO. Today, there is a PLO flag, which is the Palestinian flag, that claimed, hey, the Jews came here and stole our country. You see, we have a flag. One thing is that this Palestine adopted the notion of being a country in what? In the 70s?
Mm.
It's Yasser Arafat who did that, the leader of the PLO.
Oh,
So
sure.
basically, it was created in order to create a notion that Israel stole their country, but there was no country of Palestine to steal.
Oh, okay.
This was created afterward. And this is why it's important when we read the news today to know what happened before. If not, we have no clue of what the story. Everybody goes, yeah, Israel, apartheid, they stole the country of the Palestinians. No, there was no country to steal. It didn't exist. It was created afterward in order to create that very issue that everybody's swallowing.
Wow.
Everybody's drinking that Kool-Aid,
Mhm.
you know.
Wow.
So in 1964, it was under the PLO. And then in 1967, under Israel. 1967 is the year of the Six-Day War. And when countries around Israel attacked Israel in May 1967, Israel responded and took over the Golan Heights, which are very, very strategic. The Sinai Desert, when I was in Israel in 73, the Sinai was part of Israel. I
Okay.
actually walked around the desert by myself.
Wow.
Yeah, as a crazy teenager. And then, and so of course, to Gaza and took the West Bank, Jerusalem. So it was under Israel. And Gaza, they prospered, they built stuff, it was prosperous until 2005, when it was agreed as a good faith gesture from Israel that Israel would evacuate Gaza in order to give it to the Palestinian refugees. And it was an attempt at good faith gesture.
Okay.
But since then, that place has become a haven for terrorists. It has constantly been the place where terrorists have concentrated in order to throw rockets at Israel. At first, it was governed by the Fatah, which is still the government in Samaria. But then it got taken over by Hamas, who is a terrorist organization and has been the one always harassing, sending rockets and doing all kinds of bad stuff to Israel. And you can see today with what the Israeli army discovers is a very intricate and very well planned and organized maze of tunnels under Gaza. They get a lot of money from the UN. They get a lot of money from people in order to invest into the people. But what's been going on? They've been making tunnels underground in order to go and terrorize Israel. So and Hamas, a lot of people make the idea, the word Hamas is in itself in Hebrew is a word that means violence.
Really? Hamas means violence.
Yes, it's a Hebrew word. It means violence. And Arabic is very close to Hebrew, but in the when we talk about the Hamas organization, it's actually an acronym in Arabic.
Oh, really?
Of Hamas. It's an acronym in Arabic. I don't right off the bat know what it says. So it's very possible that in Arabic the word violence is also Hamas because it's a very close language.
Okay.
So but it's actually an acronym for an organization. So as a result of Hamas having taken control of Gaza and using that position to terrorize Israel with rockets, you can go online and look. There is a city near there called Sderot. Children know they have 20 seconds to go to a shelter when they hear the siren.
Oh, wow.
They're trained that way. So it's crazy.
That's no way to grow up.
No, that's no way to grow up because of that.
Horrible.
So, but because of that, Israel set a blockade. You see, there's a border of the Mediterranean Sea. So anybody can come there and give them stuff, give food and medicine.
Sure.
But this has been used also among the food and medicine to bring weapons and stuff from places like Libya, Iran, places who have the same agenda. So this is why Israel forever has had a blockade there. And then people say, because of the blockade, the Gazan economy is suffering. Well, you know what to do if the Gazans would change maybe government and not have a terrorist organization that uses all the money that it receives in order to make war against another country. Maybe it would stop. So it's very difficult, but this is the whole thing about the blockade Israel is doing. It's just to protect itself.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah. So, and there is a lot of information that can be gotten from there.
Okay.
So I hope that answers the question.
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So here's my next question then. Then how, in all of this conflict and everything that's going on, help me understand and help others understand how important is like Israel in the scope and plan, like God's plan. You took us into a history lesson.
Mm-hmm.
You said when you think of history, we have to think generationally.
Mm-hmm.
I learned from you earlier. So really, when it comes to like generational history, like, can you break down God's plan and the importance, the role Israel plays?
Okay, so for that, we'll go right back to the beginning of this series.
Okay, great.
Is that the plan was given to Abraham 4,000 years ago, that through him and his descendants, through Isaac and Jacob, all the families of the earth will be blessed.
Yes.
And part of that plan was for the descendants of Abraham through Isaac and Jacob to receive that land, which is called Israel, used to be called in those days Canaan,
Canaan.
To receive that land for his family. And that's all part of the plan. So how do we do that? So we saw how history, like the barrenness of some of the matriarchs, was going against that plan. And we saw a lot of countries try to annihilate Israel, and Rome finally did it. They even changed the name of the country so that it didn't exist anymore. So, and but yet the notion remains is that the plan of God is to have that country as an independent sovereign country run by the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So in 48, when Israel resurrected, it was a big deal. There's no story like this of a country and language that died and resurrect. You know, so now what's happening today, I've seen signs in protests, I think in New York, that called for the stopping of Israel to exist.
Yeah, I've seen the signs.
Yeah, people want, there is a movement for that. And of course, there's a lot of politics, but I'm not really interested in the politics. Like I say, this is a biblical perspective. And I noticed also that within the Christian world, there is varied reactions. You have some people who say, we're for Israel, we support Israel, and others who say, well, let's see how things run out, and others who say, well, they deserve it. They certainly deserve. I mean, I taught at the church last Sunday.
Yes.
And one of my friends who were with me, when I brought out that concept, he told me that behind him there was somebody who said, yeah, they deserve it. They need to get punished. It's like right there in the back, A kid 13 years old in my school where I teach told that to his teacher during class. What does that 13-year-old kid know? about anything except what he hears at home,
Yeah.
or God forbid, at church. So there's a wide array of reactions. So I'm not here to tell you what to think, but to show you that the Bible is clear about the importance of the existence of Israel as a sovereign nation run by the children of Abraham and Jacob at the time of the end. As a side note, people who believe, let's say Christians,
Okay.
believe in Jesus, believe in the great compassion and forgiveness of God. Reconciliation, that there is no sin that is too great not to be forgiven.
Praise God for that.
Yeah. But my question is, why does it only work for Christians and not for Jews? Why shouldn't the Jews be forgiven? Because if that God cannot forgive the sin of the Jews, why should he forgive their sin? He's the same God after all.
Right.
So it's really important to realize that. So what I say is, if you say Israel deserves it, what I say is, he who has not sinned, let him cast the first stone.
Which Jesus used in John 8 with the woman that was caught.
That's right. That's right.
Brought out into the square.
And Paul said, all have sinned and come short of the glory of God.
Yes.
So what does the Bible say about the role of Israel and the final redemption of the world? Well, we have this text in the Pentateuch in Genesis. Now, the time of the present-day exile, since the days of the Roman, in the Jewish world, is called the Roman exile. And this exile was inflicted on the Jewish people by God himself for their disobedience to the Torah. And that's really important. That's really important. And Moses knew it. Now, at the time where that exile started, there was a big siege of Jerusalem by the Romans. And Jerusalem was at the throw of three different zealot factions, which run the city from within, each one hating the other more than the Romans.
Of course.
It was very, very, those were fundamentalist, extremist Jewish terrorists. They were terrorizing the people. They kept control of the city. This, just as a little history thing, the city had enough food and water to withstand a 20-year siege.
Oh, wow. 20 years.
You find that, the names Nicodemus, Joseph of Arimathea, they were very rich people.
Mm-hmm.
And they put their whole fortune into Jerusalem to buy grain to withstand the siege. They could have tired the Romans out. They did that. Yeah, could have. But the war between those three factions, in the end, what one of them did, they burnt the food. They burnt the whole supply that they had for a 20-year siege, just out of hatred for one another. So it's crazy. And at that time, it was really bad in Jerusalem. The storybooks talk about cannibalism and all stuff like that because there was no food. There's some beautiful miracle story that I won't go there today. So even today, when Jewish rabbis, they talk about the destruction of the temple and of Jerusalem, they never say, yeah, the Romans destroyed it. They never say that. They say what caused the destruction of Jerusalem and of the temple was baseless hatred.
Baseless hatred.
Baseless hatred. The hatred of extremist political factions one against the other.
Okay, I can understand
which
that.
caused them to always fight with each other. And by doing that, they totally...
Much like what you see today in social media and the news.
Yes. A fundamentalist, extremist ideas of the zealots, that did that. So And what's sad is that here this is baseless hatred. Well, what Yeshua taught was random acts of love without cause, without reason. It told people to love. If they would have heard that message, things could have been different.
Sure.
So it's a, but like Yeshua said, they did not recognize the day of their visitation. So anyone who reads Deuteronomy 28 can see what happened. In Deuteronomy 28, it's the end of Moses' life. This is his last big sermon to the nation. And he's telling them, look, you guys, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to leave you because I'm going to die. And after that, you're all going to do what you want. You're going to be in sin. Things are going to go wrong and you're going to get punished. And God will take you out of the land. And you'll go to exile because of your sin. And he was right.
He was right.
It's exactly what happened. They had a trial run with the Babylonian captivity for 70 years. And that was the southern kingdom. And they saw that the northern kingdom was taken out and never came back. But that still didn't bring the fear of the Lord into, they just did the same thing in this time for 2,000 years. Now, the punishment was exile, not 2,000 years of persecution by the nations around them.
Okay.
The punishment was exile. The person against whom they sinned was God. So God is the one who gives a spanking, not all the nations around.
Okay.
So that's what happened. So we can easily believe Deuteronomy 28. Yeah, Israel sinned, exile, we see the action of God. But if we believe Deuteronomy 28, we've got to believe Deuteronomy 30.
What does that say?
It says, when the time arrives, and try not to make it too long, when the time arrives that all these things have come upon you, both the blessing and the curse which I have presented to you, Deuteronomy 28 is first the blessings of obedience and then the curse of disobedience. And you are there among the nations to which Adonai your God has driven you. Then at last you will start thinking about what has happened to you, and you will return to Adonai your God. Pay attention to what he has said, which will be exactly what I'm ordering you to do today, you and your children with all your heart and all your being. He's talking, this is Deuteronomy. Okay? At that point, Adonai your God will reverse your exile, show you mercy. He will return and gather you from all the peoples to which Adonai your God scattered you. If one of yours was scattered to the far end of the sky, Adonai your God will gather you even from there. He will go there and get you. Adonai your God will bring you back into the land your ancestors possessed.
Wow.
And you will possess it. He will make you prosper there, and you will become even more numerous than your ancestors. So that's a promise that Israel returns. And today, especially since 1967, there are a lot of Jewish believers. There are a lot. When I was there, it was difficult to find them, and they lived a bit secret. Today, there is Messianic congregations. A lot of them, many home studies in the open, being persecuted, but still they're there,
Cool.
So if we believe Deuteronomy 28 of exile, we need to believe Deuteronomy 30 of return. Of return under God. So, but I'm going to show you something from Isaiah.
Let's see it.
That the goal of the redemption and return of Israel is not just for Israel's benefit. It was not just that. This is from Isaiah 49, 5 and 6, where Isaiah takes on the voice of the Messiah, who is Yeshua. Okay?
All right.
The Messiah, he speaks in the first person as the Messiah. Isaiah has a lot of messianic prophecy. He says, so now Adonai says, Adonai says so. When you read Adonai in this text, it's the
Okay.
tetragrammaton, God.
Okay.
He formed me in the womb to be his servant, to bring Yaakov back to him. Yaakov is a terminology to bring the Jewish people, Israel, Jacob, Israel.
Okay.
Jacob, Israel, to bring Israel back to him. This is the Messiah talking. The goal of Messiah is to bring Israel back to God, to have Israel gathered to him. That's the goal of Messiah. So that I will be honored in the sight of Adonai, my God, having become my strength. So here, this was the role. Even Yeshua, he said, first, before he died and resurrected, he said to his disciples, don't go to the house of the Gentiles, go to the house of the children of Israel, when he sent his disciples in Matthew 10. Because first the message goes there. So, and then he told them, go into all the world. First the message goes there. So in the same way, redemption goes there.
Okay.
So he says, but then after that he says, it is not enough that you are merely my servant to raise up the tribes of Yaakov / Israel and restore the offspring of Israel. It's not enough. I didn't send you just to do that. It's not enough. He says, I will also make you a light to the nation, so my salvation can spread to the ends of the earth.
Thank God for that.
So basically, and we see that in the prophecy, people are going to be celebrating nativity soon,
Right.
And there is that prophecy from that the angel gave Zechariah about the birth of John the Baptist, where he says, he shall be a light to the nations. Forgot what it is exactly, but the Messiah is supposed to be a light to the nation, and Israel is supposed to be a light to the nation. A returned Israel is supposed to be a light to the nation. He says, it's not enough that you go bring back the servants of Jacob. You will also, I will also make you a light to the nation, so my salvation can spread to the ends of the earth. So it's important to see that. There is a verse that says, my name is profaned every day among the nations. What does that mean? In Jewish terminology, that means that here you have this God who chose a people, gave them a nation. He chose people, he adopted a people, gave them a country, and he's not able to keep them under control. In the end, he had to kick them out. I mean, if you have a son or children who really misbehave, you feel like, bad around your neighbors. You say, well, they must think I'm a bad father. It's like, oh my God, my name is profaned among the neighbors.
Sure.
But the day your children repent, let's say, and come back home, and you can say, look, your name, your reputation is restored. And that's the same thing.
Okay.
The restoration of the name of God is for him to say, look, we're back, and they're back.
I like that.
So this is what it is. So to make a long story short, Paul talks about this.
Okay.
Because already in the days of Paul, the story of the rejection of Israel was already, the seeds of that false theology was already planted, conceived. And Paul says in Romans 11:1, in that case, I say, isn't it that God has repudiated his people? He didn't think so. His people are starting to say that. So he says, heaven forbid. God has not rejected his people. I myself am a son of Israel, from the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. I'm a son of Israel. I don't know what tribe, but I can say son of Jacob.
Yeah.
I don't know what tribe, So son of Jacob. And many believers, many Jewish people have become believers as Jews. So there is another passage here that I would like to just share before we close. Paul also said, if you remember, we started this with returning to the story of Abraham. The story of Abraham where God makes him a promise, and the promise involves the creation of the state of Israel. You know, Paul says in Romans 11:29, he says, God's free gift and calling are irrevocable.
Irrevocable.
Irrevocable. God is not a man that he should lie. And what he decides to do is not dependent on us. As I shared with you in our first sitting, that God made a one-way covenant with Abraham. It was a one-way covenant, a covenant that is not dependent on the goodness of Israel or not, on the obedience of Israel or not. Oh yes, he will punish them, whatever, you know. But at the end of the day, God's gifts and calling are irrevocable. Then he says, he's talking to the Romans. He says, just as you yourself were disobedient to God before, but have received mercy, now because of Israel's disobedience. You see, some people already in Rome are trying to say, we're the new Israel.
Oh boy.
You know, it just started a long
That's
time ago.
happening
Yeah,
already.
actually, we read it straight. Before the end of the first century, there's a very good notion of that. Revelations 3 has a letter that Yeshua dictated to John for the congregation of Philadelphia. And there he says, I know what you have suffered at the hand of those who say they are Jews, but are not. Usually people take this like, yeah, he's talking to Christians. And about those people who says they're Jews, but they're not Jews anymore because we're the new Jews.
They read it that way.
Yeah, people read it a lot that way, you know. But wait a minute, that doesn't work. That's very anachronistic because first of all, Christianity did not exist. Christianity was not an independent movement until what? 3rd century, 4th century, Constantine.
Yeah.
You know, until then, it was a sect of Judaism. Constantine had to write stuff for people to stop practicing Judaism because I was still practicing Judaism.
Wow.
You know, so it's like, so when Yeshua spoke this to John, Christianity did not exist. And the idea of replacement theology was germinated, but it did not fully exist. So what he was talking about, he was talking to Jewish believers because the congregations were de facto what we call Christianity today was actually a sect of Judaism. It was still at those days a sect of Judaism.
I can grasp that.
So what he's talking to these Jewish believers suffering at the hands of people who say, God has rejected you, we're the new Jews. Those people who say they're Jews but are not. You know, so it's very so and Paul was already fighting that. But he says, just as you yourselves were disobedient to God before, but have received mercy now because of Israel's disobedience. Mercy when we were still disobedient. He says, when we were yet sinners, he sent the Messiah for us. When we were yet sinners, not because we were good and we deserved it. So, yeah, good boy, I give you the Messiah. No.
We didn't deserve it.
Yes. So,
which is what grace and mercy is about.
Exactly. So, and again, people want that for themselves, but Jews don't deserve it because they're sinners. You know,
you can't have it one way and not the other.
Exactly. So he says, just as you yourselves were disobedient to God before, but have received mercy now because of Israel's disobedience. So also Israel has been disobedient now, so that by you showing them the same mercy that God has shown you, they too may receive God's mercy.
Wow.
You can't have it for yourself and not for them.
I love that.
We receive the mercy while disobedient. If not, it's not mercy.
Right. Right. It's a reward, or it's a transaction. And that's how God relates to us.
You know, so it's very important to understand that. For God has shut up all mankind together in disobedience, Jew and Gentile. in order that he might show mercy to all.
Oh, I love that. That's
You know,
beautiful.
I read before Romans 3:23, all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. What Paul does in chapter 1 and 2 and 3, he's in Rome and he notices that the congregations have a real problem. There's two main factions, the Jewish believers and the non-Jewish believers.
The non-Jews.
And there was problems in Galatia with that. You read it in Galatians. There was in Book of Acts. You read it. It was a big problem. How does Paul go and solve the problem? In chapter 1, he starts by putting the Gentile believers under sin. He says, you were sinners and you had no excuse not to believe in God. He even says in Romans 1:18, for what can be the impossible, the things of God that are not comprehensible to the mind can very easily be understood by the process of the understanding through creation. So he says you have no excuse for not believing in God, and he shows them you're wrong. And then he talks to the Jewish believers. He says you're a sinner because you don't obey the Torah that these guys at least didn't know. So, and then he concludes by saying all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. So you two stop fighting. You're a sinner. You're a sinner. You need grace. Embrace. That's what he does.
That's how you resolve a conflict between two brothers.
Exactly.
An older brother, younger brother.
Exactly.
Let's all get along.
Yeah. So basically, with all that, we should see that there is a necessity for the state of Israel to exist, and it's part of God's plan in order to usher the end time. So it's not a question that Israel is good. It's not a question that Israeli politics are always good. It's not a question. It's a question of the greater redemptive plan of God for the world.
And that's the role Israel plays in God's plan.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Wow.
So I hope that helps. I know I went all over the place with this, but
wow, that's amazing. Thank you for all that information. I'm excited. There's going to be multiple conversations that we're going to post on YouTube, and make sure that there's going to be like part 1, part 2, part 3. So you should be able to see all of this soon. So I'm excited for this to be shared with your friends, my friends, and those who are interested in learning more.
Yeah. Well, it's the work to do. Teach.
Well, from a pastor to a rabbi, thank you for teaching me.
Well, hey, thank you for learning.
Appreciate you.